Hello, welcome back to the Fangirl Fantasy Podcast. I am Julie Russell, and today's guest is the creative manager at Teammate Company, Jes Sheldon. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
So we actually had one of your colleagues on in the beginning, the first few episodes of the podcast, Cole. He's an account manager at Teammate Company, and so you're the creative manager. What does that entail as a job?
So, one of the ways we work together is he'll send me a text message and tell me what they're looking for in terms of assets for the accounts that he's on. So like for Nicole, when we were doing like Masked Singer, we would do like the recaps and things like that. So he would kind of give me an outline of what he's looking for in that edit, and then I would do it, send it to him, and then he would come back with any edits or anything, and it would just go back and forth till it kind of hit final. And that's kind of the way it goes for everybody. So like each week it'll be, we need like these assets for like these artists and so on. And then kind of the other things that I do besides like working directly with the accounts is like I'll kind of come up with ideas here and there for certain things, or just, it's mainly just working on the social assets, but it's starting to transition into like working on coming up with different ideas and kind of like marketing and things like that too.
So people who don't know, social assets are like the graphics for like an album, or they're doing a live stream and you're kind of like promoting those kind of graphics.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite product?
Sorry, go ahead.
Is there like a favorite graphic that you like to work on? Is it album covers, like promoting a single?
Yeah, I really like album covers because it allows me to be like really creative and kind of like dive into coming up with a concept and going from there. Like some of the other things that I would do is like social cuts and things like that. So if there's a music video, I'll go through it and find like the best parts for the artist to post and things like that. But yeah, I think more on the creative side. So like we have one client called Dreamers, and so we made little like tops cards for them. It's like the playing cards. And so that was fun to do because it's fun to sort of be like, okay, like the cards look like this, how can I change it to like fit the artist in the song?
Definitely. Yeah. I follow you on social media, and you even just post things that you play around with and you make just for fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have Cynthia, who's the founder of the company, and she and I came up with the idea to do like Jes for fun, just kind of to separate it so there's no like confusion. And so I'll do stuff where I do like the playing cards, or I'll do like fun little action figure things and stuff like that. So it's just nice to be able to do that kind of with no like timeline or anything like that, and just a way to like be creative and then be able to use that like in actual work as well later on.
When you work with an artist or an account manager, do they have like an idea for you of kind of the direction they're going in, and then you just bounce off of that? Or do sometimes they just like, hey, we trust you, this is it, this is the theme, just do what you do?
Yeah. I think it's a mix of both. I think sometimes it depends on the artist or like what the project is. And I think that we're trying to also do more where like they come to me and they say like what they need, and then I do it. Or they'll say like, do you have any ideas for this kind of thing? So it just really just depends on the artist or like the situation.
So I'm a big Jonas Brothers fan. So obviously you work on their account, correct?
Yeah. Yes, okay. Correct.
I just wanted to make sure it was you, because their social media this past like year and a half in like the Happiness Begins tour was phenomenal. So like for the documentary, the touring, everything that you did was fantastic. And I just needed to give you kudos because you could just tell they had a new team.
Yeah.
And someone that gets it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that's Cynthia too. She just she's amazing to work with, and she's really, really big on that kind of like fan and artist connection, which is amazing because, I mean, if you look at it, like she hired Cole and I when I was a fan of the Jonas Brothers too. So like she really understands the importance of having like people like on the team that understand it, and also just like she understands it herself, obviously. I mean, she does so much, I think, that like people don't realize behind the scenes, just to create that connection and like keep that like really important like aspect of like that artist fan kind of like togetherness.
Definitely. Well, you can definitely notice on their page. So your team is doing a great job on that end. And the other day you shared an Instagram story of a DM between you and Miley Cyrus from 7 years ago.
Yes, 7 years ago. I was a freshman in college then. I'm 25 now.
So what was the graphic that you shared on Twitter that she reached out to you about?
So the whole kind of way I started doing graphic design was I just started a Tumblr for Miley where I just did edits and I learned on my own like how to do graphic design. I didn't go to school for it or anything. I went to school for photography actually. And I made one time during her Bangers era of, it was kind of like this close up of her holding flowers and it like cropped at her lips. And she DM'd me like out of the blue randomly and was like, hey, can I use that for my Adore You single? And like the sleeve and the album cover. And I was like, yeah, of course. Cause like album covers have always been my favorite thing to make. And so that was the first time that like something I made was going to be somewhere. And so it was really cool.
That's amazing. I'm sure when you saw that you had a DM from Miley Cyrus, your heart stopped a little bit.
Yeah, it did. I was sitting, I remember it. I was just sitting like in my dorm room on my bed and I was like, what? And I actually had a friend who lived on the 8th floor and she ran like all the way like down from the 8th floor because I had texted her freaking out. And so it was really cool.
That's awesome. And so but you continue to work with Miley now, correct? You make a bunch of graphics, her album, promos and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I did a lot during kind of like Midnight Sky, and then so I did the single cover for that, and then for her Blondie cover, I did the single cover for that as well. And then kind of before this era, I did the album EP cover for She Is Coming.
Does she know that you're the same person that did the Adore You graphic?
I think so. Like she, like I've like talked to her before and like had mentioned stuff that I was doing because I still did edits like in high school, in college. And so I had like mentioned some of them to her, like in reference to like something she was asking for. And she was like, yeah, I remember that, like exactly like that. So
that's awesome. That's such a great relationship that you get to have with an artist. So was Miley your number one, like that kind of jumped you into this world of going to shows and getting into the entertainment and music world if you had a Tumblr for her?
Yeah, I think she would be. It was kind of hard because like I think I loved like her and Jonas equally, which is crazy because I get to work for both of them. But like she was the one that I like really made edits for. Jonas Brothers, I really enjoyed going to their shows and taking photos of them. That was kind of like my big thing for them, which is cool because I got to do that too professionally because I did it for the Hollywood Bowl and then I did it for another show as well. So I'd say it was both Miley and Jonas in different aspects. And yeah, Miley was I started the Tumblr in high school for fun. And that's where everything kind of went from there.
If you would have told your high school self like where you are now, would she even believe it?
Nope. I mean, I don't think like my high school self really, no. It's really funny to think about just because I remember like people weren't really nice in high school about like liking Miley or the Jonas Brothers. So it's nice to like have like put a lot of time into like making things and going to shows and taking photos and things like that and to have seen it like paid off and just kind of be like, hey, look at me now. Like you might have made fun of me, but here I am.
You put your passion into your career. You were doing that all for fun because you enjoyed it. And now you're like, oh crap, this can be a job now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's crazy. And it's insane to think about. Like I always had wanted to make an album cover for like Jonas Brothers and for Miley. And like, I've been able to do both of those this year. So
that's amazing. I love that so much. If you had any advice for a fan, or just a student, that loves graphic design or loves, entertainment and music, or, the Jonas Brothers and Miley, what would your advice be for them to continue working?
I'd say just keep putting stuff out there and just try to make as many connections as you can. I mean, so like Miley also knew me because I know Olivia Rudensky. She was on her team. Like we had been friends like on Twitter. That's how we met. And just like creating that connection allowed us to like stay close. And like we both went to Syracuse. And so like that connection's helped me. And like that friendship has been amazing just because like we have similar stories and are able to like lean on each other in certain moments. And so it's great to, it's great to create connections and just keep creating stuff and try to, when you create, try to like differentiate yourself from things. Cause I think that like a lot of fans are doing edits now and like creating that space. Cause when I started, it was like 2011. That wasn't like Twitter wasn't as big in 2011 or like Instagram and all that stuff. So like when I started, there weren't a lot of people like making this in a space that was like easily accessible to artists. And so creating that kind of like making yourself unique in a way that's like still true to yourself is really important.
Definitely. I also think I said it on a previous episode, Twitter is a huge marketing tool. I think it's super underrated. And I think it's also a resume. I think if depending on how you market yourself on there, as much as I want to tweet like about the Jonas Brothers' new song or do something like that, I use it as a professional side. I think I've talked about Olivia 4 times in my podcast. I've never met her, but we follow each other on social media. I know who she is. She knows who I am. And it's because, we're both fangirls who made it into this industry. And I think we just all have like a respect for each other, like, oh, I've known you since high school from social media and now look at you and we're doing the same thing together. So I think using Twitter is like probably one of my biggest like advice to anybody is follow the network of people that you want to be surrounded by in the next 3 to 5 years. Start conversations with them. I mean, for me, I'll answer anything if someone like sends me a DM and it's just asking for advice or wanting to just like talk or something like that. Or do you get a lot of requests now that people know kind of who you are just for advice or anything like that?
Sometimes I think like I'll get some every now and then. And like anytime like Cynthia talks to somebody that like works in like graphic design or anything like that, I'm like, send them my way. Like I'm always happy to talk to people because like I was in that position. And like I remember I would DM like creative directors or like people that did album covers, stuff that worked for the Jonas Brothers or Miley. And sometimes I would never get a response. And it was like really disheartening because I was like, I'm just reaching out, like a quick answer or anything would be great. So I'm always open to like answer any questions that anybody has or just be like someone to look at something for somebody. Because that's so important to have like a mentor or just like a quick like, oh, maybe you could try this. It's just so nice to like have an opportunity to like talk to somebody that like is like working with those people or just in the industry.
Definitely constructive criticism is the best. And especially in your line of work where the little details are the huge details. So I'm sure you have that eye for, these up and comers that are doing these album covers. You're like, all right, we'll just, fix this a little bit and then it would be good. So I'm sure, constructive criticism on your end is probably so big. So obviously 2020 has been kind of hard in the music and entertainment field of everything. Was there a concert that you skipped out on like prior and you're like, oh, I'll just catch them the next time they'll come into town? And now that it's 2020 and we had no concert, you're kind of kicking yourself in the butt about not going to?
Yeah, I tried real hard to see Harry Styles at the Forum, that like $5 show. And I forgot to get tickets the first time and tried the second time. And the line, there was no shot. And so I would have loved to have been given an opportunity to see him. Because I was like, oh, well, I'm sure he's just going to go on tour. But obviously he still is, but who knows like when that'll
2 years happen. From that show.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Is there a show that you're looking forward to the next year when things are safe to be open? Like a couple artists that you either discovered during quarantine or you just haven't never gotten the chance to see them?
not that I can think of. I would say Harry again, but I think like that would be the only like show. Or I think Dua Lipa is going on tour. She would be really cool to see live. I just think I really appreciate the way she's treated this album and been able to kind of like stretch, but like in a good way, stretch out this album and the promo and everything. And I think the way that she's handled like promo and like the connection to the fans in the pandemic is great. I know it's not feasible for every artist, but I think it's nice to see an artist that like it is feasible for to like continue to try and like keep that drive alive.
Definitely, I completely agree. I know. I feel like her album came out like 3 months ago, and it's like, no, that album is like over a year old, but she is just doing a great job because then she did like the remixes with you know XYZ artists, and they weren't just small little artists. She had all these heavy hitters on. Yeah, I think she did a great job this pandemic. Is there an artist that you is a dream artist to collaborate with and work with besides obviously you have, you know, the Jonas Brothers and Miley, which were your dream, but is there anybody new that you would love to work with?
I think again, Harry, just like the way he really like looks at things and is very particular about the way he does like his releases and the way things look is great just because it shows an appreciation for like that creative side of it, which I think not sometimes artists don't have. Like you can see in Miley's era this year that like there's like a drive for like this rock aesthetic, and like you can see that in his like kind of rock and like David Bowie kind of like where he's living in that. And I love artists that like live in their era, and it's not so much like, oh, I'm gonna be like this person this time. I think John Mayer too, because I love John Mayer, and I think it would be amazing to work for someone as talented as him. And then kind of not on the music side, I'd love to work for Ryan Johnson, who's the director of Knives Out, just because in that same sense, he really like shows that he cares about like the creative side and like what goes into like posters for movies and like the end credits and stuff like that. So just any artist that's really like connected to like their music and connecting it to the creative side.
Yeah, they're like you said, they're living in their era and they're thinking about what they're doing, and they're not just putting out an album and saying, all right, that was great, gotta go now.
Yeah, exactly. And like putting it out and like trying something new like the next time. And, you know, I think there's a way to be authentic about like living in an era, kind of the way that like The Weeknd does. Like he has this persona that he's putting on, and it doesn't feel like forced or weird or anything like that.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, and I think that helps you probably get into that creative space where you're not just working on one single and then the next single is a completely different idea, because I'm sure you have to get yourself into that creative space and live in their world while you're listening to you know, the album or whatever it is. So I'm sure you bouncing around from one thing to the other doesn't help.
Right. And I think like Miley's a great example of someone that's always done that, but in a way that it like feels authentic to like who she is like then, or like to the album itself, which is great.
Is there a team or an artist team, and might not even know who they are, that are like kind of doing these album covers besides Harry that you're like, they're doing it the right way? Like, oh, I wish I thought of that, or I wish, you know, I could have come up with that idea. Is there anybody that you kind of look like that in the industry too?
I'm trying to think. It's hard because like one of the downfalls I think of album covers is that like because sometimes you don't know who does like a certain cover, which is really sad because this is like hard. It's hard to do album covers because sometimes it's either your complete concept or you're given a photo and an idea and they're like, don't do anything to the photo, just add text, you know?
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it really depends on the artist. Like I've had different moments where someone said, here's the song, like make a cover. Or I've had somebody like, or I've had someone like give me like a picture and like specific things to like not like don't make the picture grainy, don't do like X, Y, and Z, like just add text. So like album covers I think are a lot like a very hard thing to do, just in that terms it's so different, and like sometimes it's your complete creative idea. So it's real hard that like there's not a lot of ease of access to find out who did it, which I think I saw like some concept online once where like Spotify should have like a place where it can list who did the album art, because they have song credits and everything. So it'd be cool to have a feature that's like this person with their Instagram handle like did this art. Trying to think of covers.
Because I mean, think about the network that could help, you know? Like, wouldn't you love to know who did Harry Styles cover? And you could send them like a message like, hey, like, I love that. I'm sure they would have loved to get that message from a fellow. And I'm sure if someone feels the same way about your work, and then it just, you know, it's just a whole nother network that you could have and you could, you know, collaborate with. It is, I do think there needs to be a better way to give these artists credit for what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, I'm sure it's like on physical CDs, but I feel like people don't quite look at that or don't buy them. And then, like, it just depends on the artist, like, if they're going to tag the person that did it or not. So, yeah, I think, so it's hard to say, but I'm trying to think of, I really like Shawn Mendes' cover, for Wonder. I think that was nice. Yeah, I think it was, like, it felt right the way it was, like, done. Trying to think of who else. The Weeknd's cover was really great too. Let's see.
I also, someone that we were talking about earlier, getting into their era. I think Ariana Grande does a great job with it as well. You know, her album cover, her single covers, to then, you know, the outfits, to the tour and everything. I think she does a great job with being that authentic self during that era.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I really liked the cover for Positions. That was great too.
That's what I was thinking of, so that's why it popped up.
Yeah. No, I think I love that kind of, like, I'm a very big fan of like grain on pictures, and so I think that was done in a way that it looked almost like a yearbook page, but like kind of like futuristic in a sense. I don't know if futuristic's the right word, but yeah.
Definitely. Is there a project that you're working on currently or you have in the works for the new year that you're really excited about, if you can tell us, or that you're currently working on?
Not that I can think of, right now. I think the music industry is always like on a pause right now. So it's hard. There's nothing like that quite happens like now till like the first couple of weeks of January. And that's kind of, then stuff sort of picks up and like the new stuff comes. So I'm sure something will come up. But I think right now during the break, I'm just going to start making stuff for fun and try to find like the next sort of concept art that I like doing, because I've been doing like the trading cards for a while. So I want to like think of another idea that's like different and that I can like apply album covers to and things like that.
Do you have a routine that you go through to kind of get yourself into that creative mind space that you need to when you're creating new art? Or do you just kind of turn everything off and, you know, be alone and just do it?
Yeah, I think sometimes it just depends on like what I'm making. So if I'm stuck creatively, I'll go on to Pinterest, which sounds weird, but like for some reason there's a lot of stuff on Pinterest that's like great graphic design wise, because people just steal it and post basically. So like if I'm stuck or I need like some kind of inspiration, I'll go there, because the way like it works for me when I come up with ideas is I'll see one thing and then it'll give me an idea for something else. Like I'll see like the way something is laid out and I'll be like, oh, that would be cool if it was like this instead. So that's one thing I do. Or I'll listen to music. Like when I made a Fine Line as a trading card, like the album cover as a trading card. And so I was listening to the album as I did that, and that helped a lot too. So basically it's like look for inspiration and also listen to like whatever I'm working on, like that album, or like songs that are like that album, or kind of songs that fit what kind of aesthetic I'm going for in that edit.
Do you get to listen to the album before you create the album covers?
Usually I do, yeah. Which is really helpful because that makes it easier to understand, like, to connect the cover to the song. Because I think that happens a lot where there's a disconnect between the album cover and like what's on the album or like what the single is. So usually I'm sent it, yeah.
I was gonna say, if you're just doing it blind, there's no way you would know the atmosphere
Exactly.
and the brand. Well, I am so happy you came on, and like I said, I've followed you for a while. I think what you do is so amazing, and you can tell that you and Cynthia took over the Jonas Brothers account because you hit it. Like I said, you hit it right on the head.
Thanks. Thank
Exactly
you.
what the fans are looking for, and I always too like I like try to figure out which graphics are because I know you work with Miley and I know
Yeah.
you work with like Megan Trainor and
Yeah.
Cole's account, so I do try to like kind of pick and see. I'm like, oh, I wonder if she made this one or do that. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I think those in school right now going for graphic design learned a lot on kind of the creative side of what you do. So I'm excited
It
to
was
see
great.
what you come up with in 2021. So everyone, if you see the Jonas Brothers artwork, single work, some of Miley's, it's Jess. She deserves the credit. So if you see it, like it, share it, let them know. So thank you again for listening for the Fangirl Fantasy Podcast. I will talk to you all next week.